as we move from this calendar year to the next. So our annual theme is Spiritual Vision 2020, as everyone knows by heart by now. And in December, our theme was Celebrating the Divine Truth. And we have talked about welcoming the shadow, preparing the way, cultivating the light, and making magic. And the subtitle for Making Magic is The Miracle of Creative Mind to Miracle Mindedness. Now, the larger life does not create randomly. Through your understanding and to the degree you cooperate with it, you are using the law of mind to create a magical, joyful, enchanting life. Now, it's interesting that the term magic was used because Ernest Holmes said this. He said, "There is no magic in mere words, and parrot repetition avails nothing. It is your attitude of mind that can control your body and affairs." So it's not necessarily magic, right? But it is mind. So, I think, first of all, it's important for me to acknowledge that, this journey of spiritual enlightenment is one of feeling better, of knowing better, and doing better, right? I think everyone that's gathered here and beyond, this is ultimately what the highest, we'll say, purpose or calling of each of your spiritual paths are: to know better, to feel better, to do better. Now, having said that, have you ever harbored some stinking thinking? Have you ever harbored some inaccurate thinking? Have you ever harbored some unproductive thinking? How about wishful thinking? How about magical thinking? How about positive thinking? How about miracle thinking? And this kind of walks us back to one of the first theme in December, which was about the shadow. And Carl Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious, right? So it becomes this question of, what was I thinking, right? What was, and in the science of mind, this is crucial, right? To be aware of your thinking, to understand what you were thinking. So in order to heal, to grow in consciousness, you have to be willing to ask yourself at some point some tough questions about, what are your thoughts? What were you feeling? What were you intuiting? What were the effects? What were the emotions? What was going through that that body of, we'll say, activity in mind, right? Shakespeare said, nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so. So as you set aside this idea of whether your thinking was good, bad, or indifferent, and again, this might be obvious, but as we're saying, the fact is that you had some self-reference. You witnessed yourself thinking about something or having thoughts about something. And it's the committee in your head that then assesses value to that thought, to those thoughts, to that thinking, or might have judgment about your thinking. Again, good, bad, or indifferent. But whether or not you've accurately assessed, that your thinking was stinking or distorted or maybe positive, you have a conscious awareness that your thoughts are having a connection. And it's not really just a connection, it's a creation of your reality. So this isn't necessarily a accidental coincidence or a correlation between thoughts and effects, between thoughts and your reality. In the science of mind, those thoughts create your reality. So there is a causation specific in your world of realization of your world of sensory inputs. There is a direct connection to a causation from thought that creates that reality for you. So therefore, it's important to get into an awareness of your thinking. Flora Scoville Shin said, the game of life is the game of boomerangs. Our thoughts and deeds and words return to us sooner or later with astounding accuracy. Now, and this is all by degree, it's not an either or, right? But for those things that you go asleep around, right? For that kind of your thought process, your inner witnessing that you are not necessarily as conscious aware of as you are consciously aware of other aspects of your thinking, of your thought. For those things, you lack a kind of a reference point, right? So if you're kind of passive or dismissive about what is kind of an automatic feature of mind, then those things that aren't so productive, those thoughts that aren't so positive, those things that may have outcomes in your life that you're not too thrilled about, those have a disproportionate share in your life's and your mental creativity. So what is that automatic thing? Well, we've talked about this before. That automatic thinking is what we call the world of belief, right? So it's these things that are happening not in conscious mind, and these thoughts are things are thoughts. It's those beliefs that when you're switched off consciously are creating in your life. And, I have suggested that most of your thinking that is creative, most of your creative thought from moment to moment to moment, unless you're in some sort of a spiritual practice, most of the time, your life is unfolding according to your beliefs, right? And therefore, it is worth every moment that you spend on bringing those beliefs to conscious awareness, right? And the reason that you want to bring those beliefs to conscious awareness, well, there are a few of them. One is you want to be able to bless and release beliefs that no longer serve, right? So you might discover some behavior patterns in your life. Well, what's back of those behavior patterns? There's some belief or system of beliefs that's creating those now unhealthy patterns in your life or unwanted patterns in your life. And therefore, you have to bring those to conscious awareness in order for you to get rid of them, to release them, to let go of them, right? To turn them over, to shift them in some way. There might be beliefs that are working for you as well, and you want to be consciously aware of those, right? So you might have an inkling about a belief system that's sort of working. So you want to bring that to conscious awareness, to nurture it, to refine it, to modify it, to tweak it, to evolve it in some way. And then the other part of bringing these beliefs to conscious awareness is you want to be able to form new beliefs. So you want to consciously engage in an activity, a pattern in mind that freely releases and puts in place, plants those seeds in the subjective that are going to outpicture a better life for you, a more healed life for you. And therefore, you are giving conscious direction to your subjective mind by working on anything in conscious mind, but in particular, working on beliefs. And your intention, at least my intention, is that work is intended toward the positive, the constructive, the affirmative, right? Now, the other challenge around being passive around your thoughts, around your thinking, is that where you're not going to have that, give direction to your thinking, someone or something else might give direction to that. And we call this, the thinking of the world around us, right? Or what Ernest Holmes calls race thought, right? So there might be thinking influences happening that, again, you do not have specific awareness of and therefore dominion around, that will have an outcome that you don't intend or you don't want. You know, sometimes that works out for your benefit, but I think that only works out for your benefit when you're consciously aware of the thinking around you, and that thinking around you is being collectively, consciously directed towards something affirmative, positive, something of the larger light. So we go back to our vision and mission statement, right? That is the thing where we are consciously directing our collective thoughts around something that I feel, and I think most of us feel, is constructive and positive. So it isn't all bad news about race thought, but where you go to sleep around race thought, who knows what might happen? And oftentimes, what's happening, what's unfolding in your thinking and therefore your life based on the influence of the thinking around you may not be all that desirable for you. But once those thoughts, once those patterns are noticed, right, it is less about a sort of a magical random process, and it becomes a methodical process. And of course, the scientific method is what is part of what the science of mind is about, meaning there is a methodical process to cultivating, to nurturing, to growing in consciousness. You know, Albert Einstein said that the whole of science is nothing more than a refinement of everyday thinking. And so I can put it to you that the spiritual practices are nothing more than refining everyday thinking. So so we have some simple techniques that help you and help me, help everyone become reflective about thought, to become aware of your thinking, right? And so daily you can engage in spiritual practices, meditation, treatment, affirmation, prayer, to do some form of metaphysical spiritual study or reading, to journal about your process, to engage in visioning, something we'll have an opportunity to do for our community a little bit later. And then less frequently, could be daily, but sometimes weekly, monthly, give yourself over to sacred service, see your practitioner, your spiritual counselor, to give as a spiritual practice, and to do as we're all doing here today, to participate in the beloved community. And Swami Vivekananda said, the greatest force is derived from the power of thought. The finer the element, the more powerful it is. And of course, spiritual practices are indeed refining that element for as you engage in them. Now, the awareness that begins in consciousness is capsulized in the first two steps of spiritual mind treatment. And those first two steps in the spiritual mind treatment, I'll give us the youth church shorthand, is God is all there is, and I am one with God, right? So if you are questioning where to begin in monitoring your own thoughts, to become a witness of your own mind, and by mind I mean mind that is not just brain activity, but mind that is larger than that. And it's mind that is universal. It is your use of universal mind. So the first step you could take would be, God is all there is. God is this universal mind. My mind is part of universal mind. I am one with God, right? So there is just a real simple, and this is how we begin affirmative prayer. This is how we begin spiritual mind treatment, is to recognize a larger mind in this context. And we might recognize that larger mind in more detail. So we might talk about the ways in which the larger mind are aware to me of love, of peace, of joy, of compassion, of health and well-being, of a feeling of connection or circulation of compassion. These are all examples of universal mind, that God is all there is. And then to move on to say, well, yeah, I'm part of that because I'm having that God, that good experience, and I'm having that good experience, that God experience in mind right now, right? I'm calling that forth right now. I'm bringing the witness of my own thoughts to those thoughts of the greater mind, of the greater good of God. And, you know, it could be that your short prayer, because I encourage you always to have some form of a few words that bring it all into spiritual focus, to bring it all into a heartfelt or a heart-centered experience for you or expression for you. It can be that your short prayer is, God is all there is and I am one with God. You know, you're challenged in some moment, you might just say, God is all there is and I am one with God. Your thoughts are being crowded out by things that that you don't intend or choose. God is all there is. I am one with God, right? Now, I want to just talk for a moment about mind, right? Because we talk about science of mind, and mind it includes the brain and the brain activity, but it includes all those more subtle faculties of, you know, this human expression, this human phase of your soul's journey. So it includes things like intuition. It includes the feelings that you experience inwardly, and those feelings are felt all around different areas of your body temple, and they are felt in mind as well. It also includes those things that are a sort of a recursive or a cyclical experience of those energies that I would call emotions. Now, again, from a cause and effect point of view, feelings occur, and then you make a choice about those feelings to express, to set those feelings into motion in some way. And I would call those things emotions, or science of mind would call emotions or effects of feelings. But emotions are transformative and they also part of mind. Emotions have valuable messages and information for you, right? And those in turn become causes to the next round of thoughts or intuition or feeling, right? So you're not only able to think about, what are normally causes, anything that you think can be a cause, right? But you're now on a chain of causation where a cause has an effect and that effect then becomes a cause of the next thing. So where you might have a big picture idea about the vision for your life, there still is going to potentially be several causes and effects that are moving you, maybe at first in small steps, but as you continue that path, the pace quickens and the strides get stronger and longer, right? And it's all moving in that idea, that high idea that you have caught for your life. And that high idea is born out of the essence of your being. And the essence of your being is pure spirit. So as you are consciously now directing your thought, witnessing your thought, right? And you're really in a process of releasing what no longer serves and embracing what does serve, refining your thinking through your spiritual practices. As you do that, right, you experience more good. You extend more good. You connect more with your good. You circulate your good. And therefore, you are more attuned with and living a God life. Now, we're sort of in the middle of a holiday season, as some of you may have noticed. And we mentioned earlier about the celebration of Kwanzaa, which we are in the second day of that celebration. But the folklore and mythology around holidays, in particular these holidays, are filled with miraculous events, right? So we have the miracle of the lights. Similar in Diwali, we have the festival of the lights. We have the miracle of the virgin birth. And in the case of Kwanzaa, we have the miracle of the first harvest. Remember, this is has origins in the southern equator, right? So they are entering into the growth and harvest season. We are entering the opposite, right? So what's common to all those are miracles, right? And we really get a charge. We get something out of a miracle in its expressed form, right? In its manifestation. But in the science of mind and in A Course in Miracles, that miracle occurred first in mind. It occurred first in thought, and then that thought naturally manifested as some sort of a change in perception or condition or circumstance, right? So in A Course in Miracles, and to a certain extent, the science of mind, the miracle is that point at which your consciousness shifts. So you've engaged in this reflective pattern about your thinking and about your thoughts. And in so doing, something moves, something changes, something shifts. And it's that moment, that pivot point, that we identify as a miracle, right? That shift in consciousness towards something better, towards something light-filled, towards something loving, towards something compassionate. That is the miracle in A Course in Miracles. Now, how does one bring about those miracles in one's life? Well, you prepare your consciousness for it. And that preparation and consciousness relates to your spiritual practices. But it could be as simple as saying, I'm willing to see this differently, right? I'm willing to experience this differently. I'm willing to express this differently. I'm willing to connect with something differently. I'm willing to circulate something differently. And setting that intention, you are paving the way. You are opening to miracles. You are opening to that shift in consciousness. So when we talk about the miracles of these seasons in the mythology and folklore, the stories that depict these miracles, really and honestly, we're looking at changes in consciousness, shifts in consciousness that brought about these miracles, right? And it's in you and me that we duplicate those miracles when we shift our own consciousness. So that's really the essence of this season is, how fertile is your consciousness for miracles? How miracle-minded are you? And are you reminded of your miracle-mindedness through this holiday season, right? So we're reminded of the miracles, those shifts in consciousness that relate to that the stories relate to, but it's really in you that those shifts take place, that they occur. So there's a little, the good news is it's all up to you. And the better news is you can do it, meaning you can shift your consciousness. The better news is you're already doing it. So give yourselves credit for that. Acknowledge that you are already many paths along in this process, both for yourselves and all the lives your life touches, right? So the more awake and alert and aware you become, right? Aware of your thinking and aware of that power of living spirit that's within you. As you do that, you more freely, you more easily, you more frequently shift your consciousness and attune and align to that greater good, that greater God that's already true about you. And as you do this, as you continue to direct and intend your thinking, right, you're now living that divine life. And that divine life is already encoded in your spiritual DNA. It is already etched on your heart. So I just want to close with having you repeat this. I'll put it on the screen so you can do the call and response. I just love closing with this. So repeat after me. I am at home in the heart of God.
I am at home in the heart of God.
My life is centered in truth.
My life is centered in truth.
I live with a consciousness of peace.
I live with a consciousness of peace.
I am one with spirit and connected to all.
I
am one with spirit and connected to all.
I open to the vibrant faith within.
I
open to the vibrant faith within.
I am living love.
I am living love.
We'll just say the Aramaic here. La'alem,
Alem,
alumin,
Alameen,
amen.
Amen.
I seal this prayer in faith, trust, and truth.
I seal this prayer in faith, trust, and truth.
And so it is. Peace and blessings. Thank you all so much.